Welcome back to the Photo Booth podcast. My name is Nicole, owner of On the Moment Booth and Own Your Mama Co. And I am joined today with Catalina of MDRN Photo Booth, MDRN Activations, and Photo Booth Mastery. And we're talking about a really fun topic today. Kat, we're talking about the topic of outdoor events.
Don't you
What do you think about outdoor events?
Oh, God. They're like the best, but the worst things ever at the same time. Like,
Yeah, I
there's
feel like
challenges.
aesthetically speaking, it looks so beautiful. Like I've seen some photo booth companies out there who take the most stunning captures of the photo booth outdoors. Like there's nothing more beautiful than the outdoors, right?
Yep.
But yeah, you and I both know it is insanely tricky to do an
Yes.
actual photo booth experience outdoors. So let's just talk about if someone is just coming here and they've thought about starting a photo booth business and they had no idea that even being outdoors would be a challenge. Let's talk about what some of those challenges may be for them.
So many. I think a lot of people think that because it's outdoors, there's a lot of light, that things are just going to work out. But most photo booths and like the way that you're trained to set them up and all that is based on like things not changing, right? So the default settings don't usually work outdoors because you have direct sunlight or you have clouds rolling in. So you're getting shadows and then hot spots from sun. I mean, heat is a huge one. It's like 40 degrees Celsius here today. I can't, and humid. I know in Florida it gets super humid too. So that's really hard on equipment. You know, having direct sunlight on your iPad or on your tablet literally will render it useless, you know? Rain, so many things.
Yeah. It's just stressful. Whenever I think of outdoor events, I'm like stressed already, you know, like thinking of all of the things that could go wrong. That's just the photo booth. That's not even the printer, the prints, the paper, anything that has to do with that, like humidity and printing don't go well together.
Not at all.
So it's just between the weather, between the unpredictability of the sun, it's just, it can be really problematic. And I know a lot of photo booth owners have, after experience and trial and error, have said, no, I'm not doing any more photo booths outdoors. Do you do photo booths outdoors?
We do. I mean, in Canada, it gets really cold, right? And we even get asked to do stuff in the wintertime, which presents its whole other avenue of problems. And we're dealing with snow and negative 20, 30 degree temperatures where things start to freeze. But mostly we do them in the summer, obviously. So summer, fall, and spring, we get to do a lot of outdoor events. But we've figured out how to do them. So they're not impossible, right? Yeah. They just require more planning and a little bit of know-how, which we're going to go over today. So like, just listen to this podcast and apply what you're going to learn today, and you should be fine. So I can go over what we do, and then maybe you can tell us what you do if there's anything different. 'Cause I'd be really interested. I haven't talked to anyone about this in a long time. I always love hearing how you guys do it as well.
Yeah.
So we require a tent for our photo booth. And we do this for a few reasons. One, it allows us to secure the backdrop because you can actually wedge it between the frame. Smart. Right? A lot of people don't realize this, but you can just wedge it underneath the frame and the back panel of it. And then of course you're always going to want to weigh it down at the bottom, but it makes your backdrop way more sturdy. And obviously it protects you from the elements. Now, please, 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 please make sure that your tent is white.
Yeah.
I had a client give us a yellow-orange tent once, and the white balance. Yeah.
Impossible. Had like, everyone was orange.
Impossible. No. Well, because the tent was yellow and it had red writing on it. So it was like, we couldn't win, you know? So white tent or black
so smart.
is a must. Although, make sure that you secure your tent. So we always make sure that if we're going to be on cement, that we have sandbags and like really heavy cinder blocks that allow us to actually get that tent down so it doesn't fly away. One gust of wind and that thing's gone, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that your tent's tall enough too, because our photo booths are about 7 feet tall with the umbrella on them. And you want to make sure that it fits underneath the tent and not just in the middle of the tent either. It has to be closer to the outside. And if you can get one with walls, I always like to have tents that have walls, because if it rains, then we can put up the walls and get some of that. Sometimes you get water that's coming in on the sides, so
The
that's never
wind.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, or the wind
exactly.
too. It'll
Yeah.
definitely get you. And you can't tape anything either, right?
Right.
So we bring
Yep.
carpets. Outdoor carpets, you can get them at Home Depot, you can get them on Amazon. But usually, if you get like a 6x7 or even a 5x7 carpet, it's just enough to cover your cables going from your photo booth to behind your backdrop. And we always bring a generator so that we are in control of our own
Smart.
power. Because there's nothing worse than getting to an outdoor venue and seeing that they have dirty power. And a lot of people don't realize this, but dirty power will kill your equipment. If you don't have an inverter generator, then I think it was explained to me, and I'm not an expert or an electrical engineer, but essentially, if it's not inverter, it spikes up and down, and it can surge your equipment, literally fry it.
Oh. Oh my
So
gosh.
bring your own generator. We have a
Yeah.
2,500 watt, like Honda silent
Yeah.
gas powered generator. Is not silent, but you need
No,
that.
it's not. So loud. That is all so smart. And it's so funny. Like, I feel like my experience with outdoor events has all been trial and error of like making massive mistakes and be like, well, I'm not doing that again. Let's try something different. I remember my very first outdoor event. I was so nervous, but I brought my own little generator, power bank, and I did prints. I did the whole thing. The client provided the tent, and it was a white one, thankfully. I didn't even think about that. Like, I didn't even think about it needing to be white. So that's such a smart note. It was a white tent, which is great, but it was a small tent. So it was like 6 feet, So like the backdrop didn't fit, barely the photo booth, so I had to like really get creative with where I was positioning it. And I didn't ever equate the wind factor. And I was even doing a sequin one, which is a little bit more fluid than like a pillow top backdrop, which is just a sail outside. Like it's just, it will fly away. It's a kite.
Yeah, it is a kite.
Yeah, I was like, okay, we'll do sequins. And even then my whole thing was knocked over. I have a video of it on YouTube. Like it's kind of comical. But it was such a learning experience. I was like, okay, I need to ask for a specific height for my tent. And they didn't even secure the tent. Like it was all a learning experience. It was all a learning experience. And then another factor is bugs. Like that's just kind of
I totally forgot about that, but that's off. It's the worst.
It's the worst, and there's like only so much you can do. That was a learning experience for me too. I remember going to one event and the guests were just swatting at bugs while they were in the photo experience. I'm like, this is not fun, like, so all of these things you mentioned, the wind, the weather, the sun, I try and make sure that I really talk to my clients when they tell me their events outdoors. I'm like, hey, I want you to think of all of these things. And I have it really outlined in my contract too. Do you as well?
Yeah, we don't even really give them the option anymore. Like if they tell us that the event is outdoors, we just put our outdoor package on it and then we'll talk to them about it. Obviously, like if we don't need to put up a tent or have a backdrop, then great. Like if we can use, the actual background, like on a golf course or something, it's always nice to use the actual golf course, then ideal, right? But yeah, we take control of that 100% because they don't know any better. And to them, like you mentioned, saying, hey, I need a tent, even if you specify I need a tent that's 10 feet tall by 10 feet wide by 10 feet deep, they still sometimes just will call the tent company and be like, I need a tent, the smallest one you have, and then that's what you show up with. So yeah, we just add it on.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really great point. So you don't even ask for that from the client. You just provide it all yourself, which I think that's really smart because then you're guaranteed to provide the best experience.
Yeah, and I'd much rather show up with my own tent and see that there's one there and not have to set up mine. But at least I know I have my tent. But they are big, right? I will say there's obviously exceptions. We do a lot of tented weddings. But the new trend are these glass tents, like glass roof tents. I'm sure you guys have them too. Like, why? They're
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm just kidding. But
Yes.
it's so annoying because you get no coverage whatsoever. And it's like just like being outdoors.
Yeah. So for that, like, what do you do? If you
Well,
show
we
up
have
and they say, "Oh yeah, we have a tent," and they don't tell you and they don't disclose it, and then you show up and it's
a glass tent.
yeah,
We roll with it. I mean,
go with
my
it.
main concern is water, obviously, right? I
Mm.
want to be protected from the elements. And here it'll be the most beautiful day, and then one cloud rolls in and dumps a bunch of rain, even though it wasn't supposed to rain. So we always have to be ready, right? I even pack garbage bags in our kits, or like clear ponchos, just as something that we can throw over the booth really quickly if we are not protected and we need to protect our equipment, because the cases are waterproof, right? So if I have time to
Yeah.
like tear down the booth and put it into the case, then great. But sometimes you don't have that. So having like a
No.
garbage bag or something plastic that you can throw over is really handy. Even just clear shower curtains from the dollar store are perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the biggest thing after that, so if we're protected from the elements, then it really comes down to the exposure, right? The
Yeah.
picture quality. And a lot of people try to use the default settings for an indoor event, and that doesn't work. You have to
Yeah.
literally overpower the sun.
Yeah.
That's the only
It's
way to
so
do it.
yeah, it's so hard. I remember, yeah, one of my first events was outdoors, not covered. And it was so overexposed. All of the pictures were so overexposed. There's nothing you can do. You know,
No.
like if it's direct sun, there's nothing you can do to stop it. So didn't have a lot of good quality captures from that. But again, it was like a learning experience. Would you say that there's a like iPad versus like DSLR photo booth a better one to have outside if you're doing an outdoor event?
I'm always going to say that you need to use a DSLR booth that has a
Yeah.
strobe on it.
Okay.
Like iPad booths are great, in the sense that if you can control the lighting, then awesome. But the difference between a DSLR with a flash and an iPad booth is constant light, right? So you're at the mercy of it, and there's no way you're going to be able to have enough lighting to overpower this. You'd literally be blinding people, right?
Yeah.
Like you would need so much light to be able to like overpower the sun and have consistency. Now you can set your iPad to auto and hope for the best, but you're going to get really varying things if the sun's out, if someone's wearing white versus black, there's just a lot of factors that go into it. So for me, it has to be a DSLR booth, because the strobe allows you to produce enough lighting, and then you can control the camera itself so that you have full control over the light. And then the sun, it doesn't matter if the sun's there, because you're overpowering the sun. So whether the sun's out or it's shady, it doesn't matter. You're just blasting people with that quick flash of light, and your camera's taking care of everything. So we have very specific settings when we shoot outdoors, and like the camera settings are a bit crazy like compared to the default, but it works. We get consistent, beautiful lighting throughout the entire event, and it doesn't matter if the sun's setting or what.
That's awesome.
So, yes.
Do you have it set where it's like, okay, these are the settings for every outdoor event, and it's pretty like consistent whenever you do that?
For the most part, I mean, I will say that it probably takes a tiny bit of tweaking. Usually we need to like play around with the shutter speed a little bit, but I'll go through it right now. We usually use like a really high powered strobe. So for the Guac booth has I believe it's a 300 watt strobe on it. So that one's actually fine. Yeah, it is actually. So that one we use at full power instead of 50% power, because normally we're at 50%. And then for our legacy booths, we use Alien Bees. We'll swap the Alien Bees for the 800s, because those ones are 300 watt strobes. I find 300 is like a good amount, but you have to max it, like fully max power on it. Our apertures usually are around between 18 to 20, which is high, right? Or just low. I don't know. I could never figure that one out. It doesn't make sense when it's like, you know what I mean? Smaller or larger, but the number is the complete opposite. Anyway, so between 18 and 20, and then we'll play around with the shutter speed, right? Our ISO though is always at like 100 to 200, like the absolute lowest. That way you're getting really nice, crisp images, right? And you're going to have so much light that you need to dial in your camera settings. So we're just to reiterate that between 18 to 20 for aperture, ISO 100, 300 watt flash at full power. And that will allow you to overpower the sun 99% of the time. And so that your photos will be perfect. Then you play around with your shutter speed, right?
Yeah.
So you can't go higher than 1/250 though. Otherwise, then you start to see those black lines in your shutter because you're actually flashing as the shutter's closing. And so that'll get on your image. So if you're having trouble, I always like to adjust the aperture and bring that up or down and try to keep the shutter between like 100 to 200.
Oh my gosh. That's so insightful. I'm going to watch this back and write all of these notes down.
Yeah,
this
wait.
is amazing.
You know what? We should just make a cheat sheet for it.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever had issues with overheating?
Oh my God, yes. This is the worst because like if you have direct sunlight on your booth, it doesn't matter if you have an iPad or if you have a Surface Pro running in your photo booth, it's going to overheat with direct sunlight.
Yeah.
What I love about Salsa and Guac is that they have built-in fans. And so it doesn't overheat anywhere close to as fast in those booths as it does in other booths. So in my legacy booths, if we're working outdoors, I actually install USB fans on the inside of the booth. And I actually attach 2 of them that are pulling the air out from the tablet and outside because it'll always pull in from the top anyways. And that helps. But in a really, really hot days, like you almost need more than that. You know, you almost need like throw in an ice cube to like circulate and stuff because electronics don't like heat. They like cold, right? And it also will make them run slowly. Your touch screen can become unresponsive. Just another reason why you should always try to be under a tent if you can and not in direct sunlight because it will 100% wreak havoc on your equipment. I mean, the camera is less prone to failure in heat, but it's those damn tablets.
Yeah. Well, and even like photographers and videographers, they're also battling the sun too. Like they're going to wait, you know, they're going to get their best captures when the sun is going down. It's a little bit dimmer. Everyone's battling overexposure. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to like tell people like, hey, we need to be under some sort of cover. We need to try and make some adjustments here to our placement because we want to get the best captures possible. Like, I also don't want people to be afraid to ask for what they need.
Yeah, they should. Because event planners are just looking for like, and no shade on them, right? They're not necessarily educated on it, but they're always looking at flow, right? Or like setup or how things are going to look. And that doesn't always, you know, work for us. And I think it's our job as the professional to educate them and let them know, like, these are the requirements that we need so that they can do what they do best in accommodating that for the event, right? They want their client to be happy. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we want to provide the quality that they're expecting, you know, that the client's expecting. And so anything less than that, I would feel terrible about. Another thing I wanted to talk about was your team. Like, do you provide any sort of like things for your team if they're going to be outdoors? Like, do you tell them to like bring special things to battle the heat?
We have a fridge of water that they can help themselves to in our studio. We used to pack like bug spray and sunscreen, which I'm pretty sure we ran out. Now that we're talking about this, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I was supposed to order more.
Same.
But other than that, like, no. Do you? I'm curious. What do you give them?
So bug spray. I don't have sunscreen because I kind of think like if they're going to be out in the sun, sunscreen is like personal. Like some people want, you know, like acne friendly, you know, like, so I feel like that, and everyone's wearing makeup and stuff. So, bug spray for sure. And I have run out because we've done outdoor events and we had insane bugs. But I looked into like even like a bug zapper, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the propane one or like the tennis racket?
Either or. I think that would be fun. I think they would have such a fun time with the tennis racket one. But also there's like, I saw compact ones on Amazon. They're really small and they had really great reviews. So it was in my list to purchase whenever we do another outdoor event. But I also have...
You made me
What?
think of something though, because I was actually just looking at these like mini propane ones that Costco has that apparently are supposed to like do your entire backyard. I need to find that after this
Ooh, yeah.
because
Yes.
they're very portable. I'm trying to find it right now. Anyways, I'll find it later and I'll see if I can link it.
Yeah. So I have that. Something also that's a little bit different that I have is I just got a like wind measurer, because in case like the wind got too extreme or there was like lot like big gusts of wind, like we have it in our contract that anything above X amount gusts of wind, like we'll have to like
Same.
do something different with our setup. So I did it kind of like as like a, hey, I need to show you that this is unsafe for us right
Mm-hmm.
now. Like, so I have that. But also
That's
for my
smart.
attendants, I have like little handheld fans and they're like battery operated. You can charge them. And they're like super
Cute.
powerful. Yeah. And they have like a little wrist thing on there so they can like, so I have that for them. Always trying to think of whatever I can do to help them have a good time. But hat, do you do hats, sun hats?
No, but
Yeah.
now I want to. You could get some really
I
cute
know.
ones.
Or even like those, just like from walking around at like Disney and all the parks and stuff, I see people with like those personal fans that go around your neck that have like, have you seen those?
I have,
They
but like
hang,
at what
they,
point is your booth attendant like a carny? He's got like a, or they have like a fan and a
I
hat and they
know,
got like a wrist fan and a bug
a
zapper.
backpack with water,
Yeah, camel. Oh my gosh,
I
that's
know.
funny.
It is, you don't have to go crazy, but it is important that you like keep yourself safe and make
Yeah.
sure you're hydrating. So any type of like making sure your attendants are knowledgeable and understand that, hey, it's going to be hot outside. Make sure you're packing water or we'll have water for you, something like that. I think just trying to do your best to cover yourself and them too.
I love that handheld fan though. I think I'm gonna have to look for some of those on Amazon and see
They're
if I can
so, yeah, they're so tiny
grab them.
and they're so powerful. They're wonderful.
Nice.
Um, do you have any requirements about like the surface whenever you're setting up your booth? Like it has to be on concrete or it has to be on, anything like that?
I mean, we do mention that like we can't set up on sand. Well, we can, I guess, set up on sand. We do ask like what we're going to be set up on because if I need to bring like a piece of wood or something, then I'll do it, right? Um, but for the most part, like we're usually pretty good because the base is stable enough that
Mm-hmm.
we can usually weigh it down with something to keep it stable. Grass can definitely become an issue, but then you can always like wedge things underneath it. So I think you know part of our job is being prepared for everything that can happen. And it's as much as we want the client to help us, again, we're the professionals. We're the
Yeah.
ones that should be prepared for whatever gets thrown at us. And it's never going to be perfect. And that's how I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like to train all of the people on my team is like, let's prepare for everything that can go wrong. Right.
Yep.
So, yes, short answer is we do try to ask for level ground, but we're also prepared to deal with unlevel ground.
Yeah. Okay. That's
You
helpful.
actually mentioned something, though, a minute ago about wind,
Mm.
which also going to try and find that little wind thingy because I just checked my app. But that's something else to note for anyone here who uses umbrellas on their photo
Mm-hmm.
booths. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I've seen some posts where people are like, the umbrella's been caught by the wind and it just knocks the booth
Uh,
over. So,
oh, that's scary.
yeah, something to work around on that one is to get a beauty dish because
Mm.
the beauty dish has a big sock diffuser over it. And it's like, you're actually going to turn your flash to face the person. And it gives off a really nice lighting, actually, but it also doesn't turn into a giant sail, right? Like your umbrella does. So much better to
Yeah.
use that on outdoor events for sure.
That's so smart. Yeah. For pricing outdoor events, obviously, like if you're bringing all of this extra gear, is it significantly more? Have you had any objections when you've added this kind of additional cost to being outdoors?
Not normally because I mean the tent, whether they rent it from us or they rent it from a tent company, it's about the same price.
Yeah.
The generator, we don't charge that much for it. And 9 times out of 10, again, they don't have to go to Home Depot and rent it and pick it up and drop it off and all that kind of stuff. So we don't generally get objections, especially when we explain to them like, hey, we're going to take care of all of this for you, but we do charge extra for all of it. So like a tent, I think is like $350 extra for the whole day. And then we take care of setting it up. It's also our liability that's now coming into play, right?
Exactly.
Like I need to make sure that that tent is secure to the ground. And, we teach our booth attendants how to actually like put a tent with like pegs if they're in the grass. And then on top of that, there's like sandbags that they need to use. It's not that easy to just like, people are like, oh, you just set up a tent. No, that thing needs to be secured. Otherwise, if that flies into somebody's car, guess whose insurance is paying for it? Mine.
Yep.
So we definitely charge extra for that. And again, they don't generally tend to have an objection to it. And if they do, they're welcome to supply us with what we need. We're still going to bring it. And if we have to take it out because they didn't provide us with what we needed, they're going to get charged after. And we tell them that. So a lot of times they just go with what we ask them or what we tell them that we're going to do at the beginning.
Yeah. I do have a quick question before we wrap up. What do you do if you come to you're doing an outdoor event and you come and like the grass is like wet or there's any kind of like wetness around, puddles, things like that? Like how do you secure the cords, the booth if you encounter that situation?
Yeah, we never try to have like connections on the ground if it's wet, especially if there's puddles around, right? Like you can't. You just can't.
Yeah, it's literally dangerous.
I actually have a funny story about something similar to that. But so we always try to elevate the connection. So if we're running a cable from our photo booth, all the connections are in the pole so that only the covered part is running on the ground. And then the other connection should be on the other side of the backdrop so that if we need to raise it, then we can behind the backdrop. But yeah, we try not to ever put stuff. If it's super wet, then we tell them we can't operate. Like if it's downpour and like flooding, also no one wants to be out in the rain. So who's even going to use the photo booth?
I have another quick story about the sun. I remember like a client said we were going to be out on like the patio, so it was going to be covered. And so that was my one like contingency at that point, like new. We just needed to be covered. And so like, okay, yeah, you're going to be on the patio covered. Okay, great. What I didn't realize was where we were going to be placed and where the sun was setting. So,
oh, no.
yes. So it was so bad. When we set up, it was fine. The sun wasn't setting. And then as it started to set, it was just blinding light right onto us. And we were right behind a pole. So it was like half of the booth was covered in shadow, half of it wasn't. So we kept having to like move and adjust. We were sweating because it was like direct sun. So that's another thing to consider if you're listening. Just think of where the sun is setting. And there's even apps that can help you with that, like help you to know like the direction and just know north, south, east, west, right? And understanding where you're going to be placed and if you're going to have any issues with the sunset, because that was a learning experience. I feel like I do a lot of those.
Let's actually talk about what fabrics not to wear.
Yeah, go for it.
Polyester is your worst enemy. Oh my God. And everything I feel like is polyester nowadays, even like anything you buy online is going to be polyester. But I remember we had these branded shirts this one time at this like big tennis thing that we do. It's a week-long event, and they gave us these polyester shirts, and it was like 40 degrees out, super sunny and humid, and it was a pool inside my shirt.
Gross.
Because it was disgusting. Like, literally the sweat had nowhere to go, and the worst was that the shirt didn't even look wet. It was all inside.
Wow. Your own personal sauna.
It was. The next day I was like, I can't wear this shirt. I'm sorry. Like it should be required to be like minimum cotton, but probably linen, linen, like there's a reason they wear linen in every hot part of the world.
Yep.
It breathes.
Such a good note. And also black absorbs the heat. We always wear black, but
same.
It does.
I couldn't wear white. I'd get it so dirty.
Oh yeah, no, there's no way. I have to wear black. So yeah, we have a really, really helpful resource for you guys. It is the Ultimate Photo Booth Event Preparation Guide. It's going to be available for you, linked up above. It's going to be available for you to click in the description. Completely free to you, and it will help explain all of the things that you need to think about as you prepare for your events. So make sure to download that free guide, and you don't have to be scared of outdoor events like I am.
Yep.
Take all of Kat's tips and put them into use. And yeah, thank you so much. This has been so helpful.
Thank you. No, this was great. I have so many tips too. And I found that thing. It's called a Thermacell patio shield. And it's on Amazon and it's at Costco. I haven't tried it yet, but my neighbor keeps talking about it. So I'm going to buy it and test it out for the next outdoor event.
Perfect. Let us know.
I will.
All right. Thanks, Kat.
Bye.